Mark, it's Saturday night. Did you watch Saturday Night Live?
Not like live.
Neither do I. I haven't really
watched.
watched Saturday Night Live since, I loved the '90s. That's what I grew up with. Chris Farley, David Spade, Chris
Classics,
Rock.
yeah.
And then once it started getting into the 2000s, I just sort of tuned out. But you told me that over this past weekend or the previous one, I don't remember which, that Woody Harrelson hosted, and he had a monologue that I guess he was getting some flack for.
Of course.
So I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And so I look it up on YouTube, and it was very interesting. If you didn't see it, he's going on about, it's his 5th time hosting, and he's waiting for his jacket. He's making, small talk jokes. He was kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
It seemed to drag on and on, much like these do sometimes.
Yeah.
And but he's talking about, smoking a joint in Central Park, reading a script after the last time he hosted, which was 2019.
Right.
And then he starts making jokes that, I came from L.A., so obviously it's really illegal to bring that here because of the state laws.
Right.
So I had my manager, Jeremy, do it for me.
Yeah.
He was the mule, so, I'm sure Brittany Griner liked that joke.
Right.
And then eventually he gets back to going into reading this script that his buddy gave him, saying that, I start reading it, it's saying, all the drug cartels in the world come together, and they buy up all the big media and pay off all the politicians and implement this plan to where everybody has to stay in their homes unless they take our drugs and keep taking our drugs.
Yeah.
Now, I know he laughed, saying, well, force me. I'm like, I take drugs willingly,
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
And
then he threw the script away.
Right, and then he threw the script away. And
that was it.
That's what's getting him into it right now.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on that? Because
So,
you told me to look it up, so you found it first.
Yeah, so, okay, and this is why I don't really like the monologues of SNL, no matter who's up there, because it's kind of it's especially with Woody Harrelson, which I like him,
Right.
I
feel like most people, not that they're crazy about him as an actor or a character or whatever, but, didn't really have a problem with him before this.
I felt like he was all over the place. I felt like the jokes that he was trying to make early on really wasn't that funny, but yet, the audience was it didn't even...
They were half-heartedly laughing.
It didn't sound real. It sounded like a audio, record clip of, laughter.
Oh, laughter.
You know how, they do, sometimes on, comedy shows, they'll just add
I feel like they would have made it louder, though.
I get it. I was just like, man, do people really find, what he's saying funny? But, okay, whatever.
Right.
And, then he gave the idea, and, again, it wasn't, anything, crazy, because he kept it very vague. And
but he also stated, too, that he's I'm a little red and I'm a little blue.
So it makes me purple.
I'm purple.
Yeah.
I kind of like that.
Yeah.
Let's start that. Let's be purple, everybody.
Right. So, my thing is, and this is why people who make these statements, it tends to be more true, because what he said was kind of vague. It wasn't he really didn't say, Pfizer or anything like that. And just the attack, the cancel culture on him, trying to silence him, get him banned off of social media, all this other stuff. Well, and then I stopped to think about it. Why would they be doing that if he's spreading anti-vax propaganda, right? Because if New York Post, the Rolling Stones, there was a bunch of papers that were claiming, he was spreading anti-vax propaganda. But now I'm starting to think, who never gets canceled? The people who claim that the Earth is flat, right? Which any normal person will agree, the Earth is not flat.
Right.
Right? Okay, so we've established that.
We went over that in the conspiracy theories episode. I put that out.
But what I'm saying is that my take on it is the reason why that they cancel anybody who makes certain comments like that, that's so-called against the narrative, that they want to silence and shut up, cancel them, take away, anything that they can. It's not because they're quote-unquote spreading propaganda, because there's a lot of propaganda that's, thrown out there that aren't canceled. Mm-hmm. It's just certain things.
Okay.
And to me, it makes them look more guilty. The more that you try to silence
Okay,
people
right.
who have a different opinion, the more that
What are you
goes.
trying to hide?
Exactly, exactly. And, we can go about, oh, well, they're private companies or whatever, and, they have rules and they can do whatever they want, which I agree to an extent. However, the world's changing. People aren't getting their news anymore from CNN, Fox News, MSNBC. Like, their ratings are low. More people now consume podcasting, YouTube's, Joe Rogan's, Bill Maher, like those sort of independent outlets
Right.
now. So now, you know, yeah, like Twitch and the private companies, but they're now the main media source. And now, if you're again making it blatant that you're trying to silence people that are going against the narrative or whatever. I mean,
Right. It doesn't look great.
now you're no better than the CNNs, the Fox News, all that stuff, and it's like,
Well, the old saying goes like the truth is always ready to be challenged.
right,
A lie does not like to be challenged
right,
at all.
right,
Because then it has to defend itself. And if you've ever lied before, which, all of us, let's go ahead and raise our hands, we've all done it. If you've ever been caught in a lie sometime in your life and you've tried to backpedal your way out of it, it's just, it either creates bigger messes
yeah.
or, like how you said, it's very obvious you're full of shit.
Or even if you do lie, and then you keep telling that same lie, it never stays the same.
Oh, right.
Long, you know what I mean?
Little details are either left out or new things are added in because you can't fully remember.
Exactly.
Always tell the truth because then you never have to remember anything.
Right.
My dad would always tell me.
Yes.
Because as a little kid, I'd try to hide shit and they'd find out because, you're a kid.
Right.
You suck at it.
Right.
I would say that he was sort of painting the picture of the obvious, like how you said he didn't say any names of anything, and let's tell this in the way that it's a script. That way, kind of officially, I can say it on TV.
Right. He was smart for
right. You have to tiptoe around it like that.
Right.
But kind of wind the clocks back a little bit. We all just experienced it.
Yep.
And you and I were in the thick of it as essential workers. Remember, we were heroes.
Not really.
Oh, heroes!
No, nurses were the heroes. Nurses were the heroes.
I know. They were calling everybody
as they were
heroes
TikToking down the hallways.
Right,
they were
next
heroes.
to the dead patient.
Exactly.
But I will say, you were very cautious about everything at the beginning. You watched everything, and even I was looking at you sort of like, geez, man, like, get along with
Right.
everyone else. Like,
Yeah.
go, all the cogs got to work together
Right.
so that we can mesh. And, you were always one eye open, which you usually are. And, I still remember myself being like looking at people either not wearing a mask or not wearing a mask correctly. And I'm like, geez, because none of us knew anything. Then when little tidbits start to now, as the years have unfolded, come out, because my opinion of it started to change halfway through, and we're like, remember when we were all just ready to flatten the curve?
Right.
Right.
2 weeks.
Right.
Ended up 2 years.
Right. It ended up forever, and then just wait for the vaccine, Operation Warp Speed, which Trump started, which was a disaster. But and you even stated it yourself back in on Hypocrisy about the length of time that an official vaccine takes to come out. You actually gave it even less time than the official. We looked it up afterwards, and you gave it plenty of time, and then we're like, oh my God, it's even like 4 more years on top of that.
Yeah.
So then all that information, when it first came out about that drug, then starts to become, well, we don't know. Oh, there's differing factors. It could affect everybody a different way, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, stop selling it as this.
Right.
And then when anyone says otherwise, like I said, let's shut them up. They tried to take Joe Rogan down, during this whole time. We did an episode on that.
Yeah, they couldn't. That's,
Neil Young's really rocking in the free world, brother.
Right.
And now it's at a point where everybody that was so hard on how I was at the beginning.
Right.
Follow the little arrows, stay 6 feet apart, wear your mask. And now that we know more, I've shifted, whereas I still see a lot of people that stay the same. Like I go out and I still see a lot of people wearing masks, face shields, gloves.
Because why?
Not as much.
Because why?
Because they're terrified. They're now locked into this fucking thing.
No.
Or as Stalin would say, they're going with that narrative
Yes.
forever, and he referred to those people during his reign as useful idiots.
Yes. So
Just like us.
So
Good name for a band.
Let's quickly kind of rewind to all the events that happened. You look at who was the voice of the whole pandemic, right?
The great.
Fauci.
You always say the great Dr. Fauci.
He had a horrible track record previously.
Right,
Okay.
I remember
So,
you.
all right, whatever. That's one of the biggest things I'm very mad at Trump on. He got duped with this Operation Warp Speed. And this is what I mean. There was also another lady that was working with Dr. Fauci, which is Dr. Deborah Burke. Okay?
Okay.
She also wrote a book, and she's been on outlets saying that they lied to Trump about everything, just like they lied to us about stuff. Remember, the story kept changing, and we're just so we have short memory, and we're so quick to hate and pick sides and demonize. I mean, if you didn't wear a mask, you were demonized.
Right.
You might as well have been Hitler himself. You were demonized.
Now,
if you didn't believe in the vaccine for whatever reason, you were demonized.
That happened to me.
Right.
I wanted to wait and see just because I thought it was rushed.
Yeah.
And, I didn't poo-poo on anybody that took it.
No.
But
But again, that's part of America.
They're all asking me. They're like, "Oh, did you get vaccinated? Did you get vaccinated? Did you get the shot?" And I'm like, I'm just gonna wait and see, whatever, because I had it, I recovered from it. I believe in the whole natural immunity kind of thing,
Right.
the way the body works. Let's
was-
see what happens.
And let's not forget, this was not a natural virus. This was not
No,
natural.
No, now it's all over. It's all over that it leaked from Wuhan.
Remember the pangolin? No one even knew. No one even knew.
Randy Marsh remembers the pangolin.
No one knew what the fuck a pangolin was. Didn't know it existed. Didn't know anything.
Awkwardly.
Didn't know anything. And then it was like, oh, a pangolin fucked a bat and in the meat market and boom, COVID. Okay. And, and again, we were racist for shutting down travel bans with China and, all this other things. And then a couple years later, we find more stuff out. It's becoming clear as day. And there's no outrage.
Right.
We're just so it happens.
And it's the entire spectrum of mainstream media. You've got, Foreign Affairs, House.gov, the Wall Street Journal, CNN, Clinical Med International Library, Science.org, the New York Times, BBC, Al Jazeera, for fuck's sake, U.S. Energy Department, COVID leaked from Wuhan lab. It's all there for you to see. Can we all just stop being red and blue, and be purple?
No.
And that's the point that he was trying to say, and even those, the useful idiots, are sticking with it.
But, again, we're getting...
He's not saying anything we're not seeing.
No, and, we laugh at it now, but it amazes me. I would think that at some point in time, the American people would stand up together and say, we're done being lied to, we're done with this whole fucking charade that our government's playing. And instead, now we've just moved on to different issues. Now we're worried about genders
Balloons
and trans and all. No, we're not even worried about that. We're not even worried about the Ohio.
Oh,
Housing.
right.
We're not worried about that. It's either Ukraine or trans rights, or gay rights, whatever. But seriously, that's where we shifted. And again, no one gives credit for the people that stood their ground and said there's something fishy going on. This does not make sense. And people forget the lockdowns, businesses closed, people lost their jobs, people never recovered. Some people never got their jobs back from COVID.
Right.
Everyone was affected in some way, shape, or form. And yeah, some people did lose their life, unfortunately.
Right.
But that was mishandled. Why?
Yeah.
They kept information out. They handled it poorly.
My mom was the first one, and she's a retired nurse of over 30 years. She was the first one that was a little bit unnerved by the sense of the numbers being reported.
Right.
Once the information started to come out of these may not be very accurate, they're reporting, like then they come out and say, if you died like in a car accident, they test you for COVID. If it tested positive, well, it's a COVID death. I mean, South Park episode that we just watched, like somehow, some convoluted way, it was COVID related. So let's tally that one up.
And remember, CNN, MSNBC, they had a death toll counter. Like, what?
You should just do that every day because it would probably be a similar number.
And listen, we forget how Cuomo, he got kicked out of office. How he handled COVID patients.
Oh, I thought it was because he was getting a little frisky.
No.
No?
We forget that shit. We really do. And again, and some people go, oh, well, you are anti this and that because you don't believe the COVID was real.
Well, you're anti-bullshit.
But that wasn't the argument. No one was saying that it wasn't real.
Right.
The fact is, this isn't natural, and we need to punish the people that released this and put this on. And then
gain of function research.
Dude, anytime. Yeah. Everything is presented by Pfizer. Anytime you go on any mainstream
the Grammys.
News,
we forgot to mention that
on
our
Pfizer.
Grammys. Yep.
All
brought to you by Pfizer.
and we're still just like in fucking La La Land, like they can come out and say, well, you need to get a booster every week. People will fucking do it.
You need to keep taking our drugs.
You're wearing masks that are supposed to protect you that are made from China. We get all of our shit from China.
Right.
So it's really sad and frustrating, but in a fucked up way, this is what we deserve.
Right.
Because we let this happen. Yeah. And it even came out, a year and a half later, that we originally created it and sent it to China.
That's what I heard too, yeah.
And still, no outrage. We are more obsessed about drag queen shows than this shit.
I had heard that listening late night to the Johnny B show, and Will Kuntz was talking about that some months back, about, that it had maybe originated here. Some doctor in the Carolinas, I believe it was potential, or years ago, not months ago, a couple years ago. So what do you think? Let's theorize. What do you think it was really about? Like the way it was handled, like the lockdowns, the arrows, the not enforced, but well, in some places enforced vaccinations, and or just the pressure overall to go with it. What do you think that was about? Because to me, it was almost like I had several thoughts. One was they're getting their AI facial recognition almost perfect, to where like anybody that's not like they're a troublemaker. They're not gonna go with it because look, they're not covering their face and it's easier to identify them, whereas everyone else maybe not. But then when the vaccine came out, obviously I think the people that weren't wearing the mask probably didn't get the vaccine either. And that's another way to track who's following the rules here and who's not, or who's going to go with it. That was one idea. The other one was that maybe it could have just been a mistake.
No.
I don't know.
No. I have a couple theories. One that isn't out of out of left field is thinning the herd. Part of their the top 1%, the elitists, like your Bill Gates and all that stuff, where they are all about climate change and the earth and all this other stuff, and I think that could have been part of it.
Kind of like Kingsman.
Right.
I
think another thing is to also divide us on who, believes in this and who doesn't. Kind of divide us, because there was division on that. If you walked into any place, did not wear a mask, you were demonized. If you did not get a shot, in some places, if you did not get a shot, guess what? Your job was in jeopardy.
Right. I will say, like I said, when we were first kind of going through it, I kind of went along just so I wouldn't get hassled. That was really like, I wasn't afraid, but I did. I was afraid of the social pressure. I was.
But that's the problem.
I overcame it, but at the beginning, about halfway through, I knocked that off. Now, I didn't have anybody scream at me because more time had passed, and I think more people were kind of like, all right, what's going on? But you like I said, you always had one eye open. I don't think, aside from being at work where you were required, did you ever get, when you were out not wearing a mask or
Yeah.
anything? You get, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the
And that's
time.
what I mean.
I
Like,
told
people
them
are,
I told them to fuck off.
right.
Tell them to fuck off.
Like, they
And
think you're
then,
going to kill everybody. They think you want to kill them and kill
but you
their
lose. But
family.
here's the thing: you use the logic against them. So I go, "You're wearing a mask right now, right? So you should be safe. Don't worry about what the fuck I'm doing. Let me die. If that's the case,
Right.
you're wearing a mask. You're protected. It does not matter what I do.
That's true. I felt that
we're,
way about
we're,
churches.
but again, we're just, and that's another thing. People are afraid to do what they believe in and their values, and they're just like joining the herd. That's why you hear the term sheep. We're all, sheep. And
And they're counting us.
and again, I don't know what the main goal is, but it definitely.
I still feel like it's to say who complies easily and who's going to
I
be
think
tough.
it was an experiment for something bigger. They wanted to see how easy they can manipulate things, how easy they can control people.
It feels that way now that we see
Um,
all the stuff.
There was too much money moving around. I mean, Fauci made a fucking killing, money wise,
His net
off
worth,
of it.
yeah, went way up during that time.
Pfizer, if you look up their earnings, I mean, it's ridiculous. Billions and billions of dollars, their earnings of this. And again, I don't know what the bigger picture is, but and still, and now it's kind of like reversed to where now if you see people wear a mask, they're kind of the ones that are like the outcasts now because a lot of people are either vaccinated or just over it.
You know what's weird too is I did a full 180 on that too. Beforehand, when I was wearing one and I'd see people that weren't, I remember briefly telling you once that like I would give them the head nod or something like that just to kind of let them know like they're still okay. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I'm sure people have been giving them shit for not doing it. Now I do the other way around. Like I see, there's a woman that I see, she's got their, like I said earlier, she's got her mask, she's got her gloves on, she's got her face shield, nice as can be. She's terrified to me. And I'm extra nice to her too because I'm sure, who knows, maybe it's the script is flipped where people kind of, are saying things to people that wear masks. Look, I think you look ridiculous. If you're out there with your mask and your gloves and whatever, what are you trying to hide, first of all? Second of all, if you are, that's still okay. You can go ahead and do that. You can wear, I feel the same way about people that wear cowboy hats in public. You want to wear a cowboy hat at the grocery store? Go ahead. I think you look ridiculous.
Right.
But go for it. Let's just leave it, let's be purple.
But here's the thing though. We don't attack people who wear masks. We don't go after them. I mean, we may give them looks.
It's hard sometimes to be the bigger.
But we may give them looks, but that's it.
Right.
But not too long ago, if it was the reverse, I mean, dude, people were getting fucking beat up if they didn't wear a mask.
Any of you experienced something like that? Type it in the comments. We'd like to hear some stories.
And again, this is why, and how many people got canceled? How many people got thrown off of TV? Lost their...
And they're still trying, like how you said, which leads you to believe
So it's like, what are you hiding? You don't want other opinions around because, again, how many other bullshit, things that people say online that they don't get in trouble for? And
Arnold Schwarzenegger coming out and saying "fuck your freedom," like we totally forgot about that. We're still cool with with Arnold. But we want to cancel Woody Harrelson for kind of making a roundabout way of joking about what we all experience now that we see the writing on the wall.
And he just had a talk. He was just on Bill Maher too, and they talked about the government and all these other things. And it's like, look, like. Again, this is why this country is different from everybody else. And I know a lot of you young people think that every country is just like the United States, and that's not
better.
And that's not the case. Again, we have personal freedoms. You can do what you want, right? When you start colonizing and getting into groups and then attacking the other group because they don't fit your viewpoint, that's where we become vulnerable as a country. And then guess what? We're right for the pickings, Rot
you out from the inside.
And again, it's going to hit people, and they're going to realize it when it's too late. We're too busy attacking. We always want to attack each other. Now the new thing now, and it always pops up on YouTube, is now it's men versus girls in the dating world. That's been popping up all over the place. So
Cats and dogs,
we're just
cops and
moving on. We're
donuts.
just moving on. We just kind of forget, and and again, people like Woody Harrelson and a lot of
Well, Bill
unfortunately,
Burr's SNL bit, still kind of
but
in the middle of
but
it.
they don't want
He
you
got
to
a bunch of
forget.
shit
Yeah, but
about
they don't
that.
want you to forget. That's why
Right.
they still
And he
bring
was
it up
there.
and
He's like, I
talk
don't
about
give a
it.
shit. Go kill your grandma. I don't fucking care. Like, whatever. He's
Right.
making jokes, obviously, but it's the same thing as you said about the mask. Look, don't worry about me and what I'm doing.
Right.
If you're wearing your mask, then good for you. Don't worry about me. You should be fine if you believe in that. Same way I felt about churches when the pandemic first started. They shut that shit down.
Right.
And I had that conversation with my parents. My dad being both of them are, strong Catholics. My dad much more so, and he was very upset by this. Whereas my mom, like I said, retired nurse, she's thinking on that medical side before we had more information. And I was like, let him go to church. And she's like, well, I mean, you could be spreading blah, 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 blah. And I was like, look, your faith will keep you safe. I mean, there's a much more extreme example in Alabama with the guys that hold the snakes, and if the venomous snake doesn't bite them, then it's God's will or whatever. Yeah, and people get bitten and die, or have to be treated. But that's if you have faith that you're going to be fine, whether it's with your mask or in your congregation, you should be allowed to do so.
Yep.
Like I said, we're always fighting with each other. Don't be red and blue. Be purple.
Do you think? Let me ask you this real quick. Do you think? Let's just say.
I don't think often.
If it came out of what is made the shot, like what's in the shot, right?
Okay.
And it's a bunch of, let's just say, horrible things. So I don't know, whatever horrible concoction that they made, and somehow it relates to, I don't know, call me crazy, all these heart attacks happening lately, which is in history, which is pretty weird that all of a sudden now it's a massive flow of heart attacks.
A lot of very healthy people too. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've heard a lot of advertisements now about like
blood
digital heart scans and stuff.
blood clots are another.
They're really trying to pump up digital heart scans, which at the same time, every now and then I feel like, after a couple cups of coffee or a Monster or two, I'm like, oh, maybe I should get my shit scanned.
Do you think, and maybe not just that, but just anything about the COVID thing, if anything came out, things that we say actually came out to light, and found out that yeah, they were lying to us, it was a big thing, like on a national scale. Do you see any outrage, like in general, or just kind of like we're divided in sides and we're just going to keep on trucking?
I think so, because I turned that tide myself. Like how I've been saying at the beginning, I was on the same side as what the narrative is now about COVID, still to this day. But we didn't know anything. Now that I have more information and now that I've seen a few more things, because I decided the wait and see approach, now I feel a little bit more confident in the decision of I'm glad I didn't do any of that stuff.
Yeah.
But there are probably a lot of people that maybe internally feel duped. Like I would agree with you in that there are a lot of people that just fucking, yeah, we did the right thing. People got tattoos where they got their COVID shot. I'm like, that aged well. Won't regret that, ever. But I don't know, man. I feel like there are a lot of people that just probably went with it, and now they're kind of like, oh my God, we were wrong, or like, I was wrong, and they're not mad about it. They're just a little embarrassed, maybe to some degree, because they went hard, with everybody else, and then now they're seeing it for what it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. My father, he's a Republican. He watches Fox News, always been conservative since I was a kid, still is till the day he dies. He still goes, look, that was the information that I was given, was the best course of action from a medical physician was to take the vaccine. So I followed the instructions, and I know a lot of people that did stuff like that. They were just trying to be calm and cool and collected, even if they disagreed with, how stringent mask mandates or whatever was, or shutting businesses down and basically destroying the economy.
Right.
He still went with it.
Yeah.
And I know some people, I was borderline there. I'm just going to fucking so I can just take this stupid thing off and be done with it.
I think what you did, though, you did ask me, like, my honest opinion about it, because you were thinking about it.
I was.
And I and I told you,
Like, just
you should not do it.
just
Please
don't.
don't. And you
And now
did,
that I
and you
waited and
did.
saw,
You thanked me not too long ago.
yeah,
You're like, you know what? I'm glad I didn't take it.
yeah. Just
So
because now that we obviously don't know, because everyone's been lying to us, it could be a weird placebo.
No.
Like it has, right?
No.
I'm just saying it could be.
No.
Or it could have been something a little more deliberate. Who knows?
Then you might as well
But
just
either
believe it
way,
came from
exactly.
a pangolin. Then I mean,
Either
what the
way,
fuck? I
I'm
mean,
glad I just didn't do it because now I don't have to.
and we
find
don't know what the
out.
long term effects are.
Like,
And I
let
tell
me
you
just
this,
take this mystery pill and find out what happens.
and I'll tell you this though, it makes me not trust doctors because a lot of doctors were bought and paid for
Pushed pretty
because a
hard
lot
for
of
it.
doctors are run by insurance,
Mhm.
and the doctors that did speak up about it and maybe tried different remedies or had different solutions, they got canceled. And so again, even the doctors were in on it. Why? Because of money.
Right.
That's what it boils
Corruption
down to.
at every level.
Yeah. I mean, my mom has seen doctors at least for over 20 years. She does not trust them anymore,
Right.
especially how they handled that shit. You know, because everyone's afraid to have their own thought. We're just going to follow suit because we're afraid to lose money or, lose our reputation or image. But again, that's what makes you, in the end, the bigger and better person if you stick with your beliefs and your values. You don't have to shit on people who don't think like you. That's fine. That's what makes humans special. That we all believe and think differently. But we should all come together, and we should be fucking pissed on any capacity if we've been fucking lied to, which we have been on some fronts. I mean, and guess what? The video evidence is there. You can go back and watch however, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. Then, it came from a pangolin, came from a bat, came from a fucking fruit down in fucking, New Zealand or whatever. And,
Kiwi.
we're just like, we've been lied to, whatever. I mean, Deborah Burke wrote a book saying we lied.
Right.
Nope. No one cares.
It's okay.
No one cares.
Trump told us it came from China.
Maybe next year, whatever.
And everyone was like, that's just racist, bro. And they're like, why are you calling it that, the Chinese virus?
Oh, that's another thing.
China.
That's another thing.
Came
we
from China.
named
now, like I said, even CNN's reporting it came from China.
That just raised me a point. We name viruses. It's been throughout generations. We name viruses where they came from. The Spanish flu.
Right.
Why? I mean, that's not a racist thing that it's a China virus because it came from China.
That one was, but we didn't have like enough or whatever official name. There's
been flus or viruses that came from like Africa.
I'm sure there are
that we named them from their origin.
Right, West Nile virus.
That we named from their origin.
Right.
That's not.
Sorry.
It's not a crazy.
Yeah.
And again, everything is racist, this and that. And it's like, no, we've always done that. It's not something like crazy. Like what? Whatever.
Even the mental things, Stockholm syndrome. Helsinki syndrome?
Yeah, that's true.
Just saying. Huh? So at the end of the day, it's a good message overall, though. I mean, if you haven't seen his monologue, like I said, it's not that funny. If you want to give it a look, go ahead. But the message is clear. Don't be red. Don't be blue all the way. Be purple.
Kush.